Doug Christie has revived the Sacramento Kings, who after a 6-game losing streak have now won 3 straight, 2 of them close games, and tonight's win against a very gritty Memphis Grizzlies squad. Good vibes are back in Sacramento, and we're breaking it down right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And boy, do I enjoy doing post-game podcasts after Sacramento Kings wins, even if I'm wrong. And that's something that I want to make sure I'm very consistent with. Even if I am being proven wrong with my feelings towards Mike Brown and how he wasn't the problem, he was unjustly fired by the Sacramento Kings organization. Even though the Kings winning and Doug Christie having success makes that less correct or makes me look more wrong, I'm certainly not going to not enjoy and appreciate what we've seen from the Sacramento Kings over these last 3 games just because I am so heavily in Mike Brown's corner and such a believer in Mike Brown and that the firing should not have happened. We're going to break down in this first segment how Doug Christie has revived the Sacramento Kings. And it's something very unique to him, a skill set and a strength of his. And I use revived. I use that term very specifically and very purposefully. I'll get into why in just a second. But what is different, right? The eye test clearly shows us that the energy and seemingly the enjoyment is back for the Sacramento Kings. Now, of course, you're having a lot more fun and you're enjoying the game a whole lot more when you're winning, of course. But De'Aaron Fox talked about finding like the joy in playing basketball again, or finding the enjoyment in basketball again when the Kings were in the middle of that terrible slide. And that opened some eyes and caught people kind of off guard. And I do not believe, in fact, I know that was not an anti-Mike Brown message. I don't think that had anything to do with the coaching staff or decisions being made in the Sacramento Kings organization. I think it just ultimately fell into, with all the losing and underperforming and frustrations and injuries and inconsistencies, the Sacramento Kings were clearly feeling it, feeling the pressure, and had stopped playing with the love and enjoyment of basketball that translates into the fast-paced, high-energy style that this team was known for a couple seasons ago and has not really been able to fully get back to. We're seeing that again. We saw that tonight from the Sacramento Kings. Now, that didn't mean that everything was perfect. There were certainly some lulls in this game that the Kings still have to clean up. Problems that this team has carried throughout this season and even last season that Doug Christie has not fixed yet. But right away, we can see this group is just playing different. They're just playing different. And the clear change point was when Doug Christie took over as interim head coach. And what I love is that this team is winning in different ways, right? They won on Wednesday. They beat the Philadelphia 76ers here in the Golden One Center on the backs of their defense, right? Very gritty performance. Went on a 15-0 run to end that game. Held the 76ers scoreless over the final 3 minutes and 20 seconds or whatever of that game. Tonight, they beat the Memphis Grizzlies 138-133 in an absolute shootout. So you win a game on the backs of your defense. 2 nights later, you win a game on the backs of your offense. Being able to win different styles of games on any given night is a showing of strength. It is what good teams do, because you're not always going to be able to play your style. Things aren't always going to go the way that you plan. You need to be able to win and adapt to your circumstances. I think we've seen that from the Kings over these last 2 games. Doug Christie very specifically brings something to the table that I'm not just going to say Mike Brown didn't have, that nobody has the same way. Doug has an unbelievably iconic personality. I know this not just from the interactions that I've had with him in media spaces. I worked with Doug for a couple of years when he was working at Sacktown Sports 1140 Radio. I was there at the time. Got to share some airtime with him, do radio shows with him from time to time, interact with him. We both were taking golf lessons at the same time around the time of the pandemic, or just before the pandemic. And he poured himself into golf, and oftentimes he would be there when I was getting my coaching sessions or I was working on my game, and we'd have some back and forth. And I saw some of his coaching come out just in the way he tried to motivate me when I was hitting the ball a couple of times. Right? I've experienced this side of Doug to a very, very small degree. Nothing compared to what those players have experienced over the last 2 years of him being an assistant, really 3 years of him being an assistant, and now as the interim head coach. Doug's personality is infectious. It's why everybody loves and respects the guy. And Doug's ability to motivate and to focus people on what's important, which I don't know if you saw the video after the 76ers win. He takes this entire Kings team, the entire roster, up to the roof and does the post-game speech by the beam, where they actually shoot the beam into the sky. And his whole message was, you are the light of the city. You are this beam. You are the light of this city. You play for them, and you play hard, and that kind of win, that gritty performance that the Kings had in that win, that is what they are all about, right? The way Doug delivers messages, it speaks to people. It resonates with people, and I have to imagine it's fun and easy to play for. Plus, I think Kenny Caraway said this from ESPN 1320, and I think he's absolutely right. Maybe it's a little unfair towards Mike Brown, but I do think it's correct. Mike Brown tended to focus on the negatives, not in a way that like he dragged you through the mud if you were doing something wrong all the time, but Mike focused on what players couldn't do or struggled to do and wanted so hard to improve that, which I think is good, and I think that's important. But sometimes he focused too much on that, whereas Doug does a really good job focusing on what you do well and trying to bring that out of you and emphasize that and put you in a position to shine because of the things that you do well. That doesn't mean that he just says, hey, ignore all the things that you struggle with, don't work on those aspects of your game. It's just he tends to bring out, and what he's really done, I think, over these last few games, is bring out the strengths of these different individual players that he has on this team, this unit. That If Doug Christie is going to actually become a full-time head coach in the NBA, that's going to be the reason he gets the job. That ability and that unique skill as a motivator. But here's what's interesting, and this is what's worth pointing out, because I know a lot of people are going to be on the anti-Mike Brown feel right now or doing victory laps. If you wanted Mike Brown to be fired, that's fine. You can say what you want. You can even come at me for how strongly I felt about the Mike Brown firing. That's fine. What's important to note, though, what's important for everybody, no matter whose side you're on, to understand, ultimately we're all on the same side. We're on the Kings side. We want the Kings to succeed. But Doug's messaging is almost the exact same as Mike's. His talking points, focal points, spray threes, things of this nature. Like, the way the Sacramento Kings are playing fundamentally is not different from how Mike Brown wanted the Sacramento Kings to play and talked about the Sacramento Kings playing. Getting up and down the floor in transition, playing quick in the half court, the ball zipping around, crashing the glass, offensively and defensively rotating and communicating and playing off of one another, 0.5 seconds, right? These are all staples of Mike Brown's offense and defense here in Sacramento over the past few years. But what's different is the delivery of that message. The message is the same, but how that message is being delivered to the players and how that message is coming across is different. And clearly, the players, as of now, small sample size, the players are responding well to how the message is being delivered. Doug Christie has revived the Kings. I use that word very specifically because he hasn't cured them. He's resuscitated them. He's brought them back. These Sacramento Kings look familiar. They look like themselves again. They've crawled their way out of that dark abyss of that 6-game losing streak and how bad they were, especially when they lost 5 straight in this building. Right? He's revived them. He's brought them back. But they still have issues that he has not solved. Look, this is not the first time the Kings have won 3 straight games this season. This is the 3rd time. You know the last time the Kings won 3 straight games? It was right before their 6-game losing streak. I bring that up to say this. This team showed that they could win consecutive games under Mike Brown earlier this year. But they couldn't do it consistently enough. They couldn't continue to build upon it. They'd win 3 straight and then kind of fall apart. They'd take steps forward only to take steps back. Doug and his version of the Kings, his era of Sacramento Kings basketball, they haven't fixed that yet. But they have a chance to in their next game on Sunday. They can win 4 straight. Now he has the longest winning streak of the season. But again, he's revived this team. He has not cured them. The Kings have been here before this season, multiple times under Mike Brown, winning 3 straight, looking to try and get a rhythm, looking to get a flow, getting themselves going. But they've struggled to continue it. We'll see if Doug and this team can together continue it. But as of right now, look, the Kings are 16-19. Still 3 games under 500, have work to do, but they're only 2 games back of the play-in. So there's more than plenty to play for with so much season remaining. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of Locked On Kings is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And it can be a $5 bet on anything. Make it the easiest bet you could possibly make. You win that bet, there's $250 bonus bets for you to have some fun with on FanDuel. There's so many ways for you to pick up a W, whether you're betting on players to score a touchdown or how many points each team will score. It's thrilling, it's fun, it adds a new dynamic to watching already very exciting and entertaining NFL football. Of course, you could bet on NBA action as well, college sports, MLB baseball when it comes back, NHL hockey going on right now. There's so many ways to play on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Tonight was a welcome offensive explosion for the Sacramento Kings. Not the first time they've had it this season, but they certainly haven't had it nearly enough, right? This looked like Beam Team 1. This looked like the Sacramento Kings from 2023, right? They were cooking offensively. 21 threes, which initially I thought that has to be a season high, right? Actually, no. I think they had 22 threes against the Utah Jazz earlier on this season, but still 21 threes. We know how much this team has struggled shooting the basketball, and it seemed like, well, they made up for it a little bit tonight, or some of those threes that were missing showed up suddenly for the Sacramento Kings, and I love how great of a start they got off to shooting the ball. They had 10 threes in the first quarter. They were just raining from three-point range, and it wasn't just 1 or 2 guys. Everybody had the hot hand. The Kings went 21 of 47, 44% from three-point range in this game. The ball has energy again, and this is a term that I stole from Doug Christie. This is a term that Doug Christie used a ton working in television on the Kings broadcasts and working in radio, saying the ball has energy means the ball is zipping around, and when you touch it, it feels good. Like when the ball has energy, that means energy is being shared throughout this group. And that's so important because with this group, it's a very unique trait of this team. And it's been consistent over the last couple of years, but it's especially prevalent this year. When this Kings team is on, like when somebody's hitting shots, typically everybody feeds off of that, right? You notice that the Kings don't really have too many games this season where one guy is shooting lights out from three-point range and everybody else is struggling. It's happened from time to time. But typically, when one guy gets it going, everybody starts to get it going. And as we've seen far too many times this season too, when the Kings are struggling to shoot the three, typically everybody is struggling to shoot the three. It's a very unique trait with this team. And I asked both Malik Monk and Doug Christie about it after the game. Malik, it seems like with this group specifically, you guys go together. If one shot is falling for somebody, everybody starts getting their shot falling. Same thing on the opposite side of things. Is that something that's really unique to this group? Why do you guys tend to thrive or kind of struggle together at the same time?
Yeah, it's crazy. I guess because we're so close. we got close. We got close quick. This group. So I think that's it. We so close. We like brothers. When one off, somebody else off, and when we all on, everybody on. So I think that's a good way to go about things too, especially in a team sport. So, yeah.
Doug, a trait of this team seems to be when one guy is on, everybody is on, or at the same time, if one guy is struggling, then everybody seems to be struggling. What is it about the cohesiveness of this group and how they all seem to impact and feed off of each other?
It's something that I think the negative part, bad part that you just said is the struggle. But the good part is what I focus on. Like, we are about joy for us and taking it from the opponent. And that's what we want to do. And that's what we want to focus on. Mistakes are made. Don't look over here. Keep playing. Like, play through the mistakes. It happens. This game is actually about who makes the least amount of mistakes. So they're going to get made. It's like not a big deal. Like, if it's super big, like, it'll be a timeout and we'll talk about it. But the point is, you continue to fight, you continue to play to the next play with speed, aggressiveness, downhill, and looking to take joy.
So the whole idea of when it rains, it pours is a great thing on offense, right? The Sacramento Kings, if they can feed off of each other and know if somebody's going to start hitting shots, everybody else can collectively hit shots to where they can have a performance like tonight where they hit 21 threes and score 138 points. That's great to see. Now, the Kings obviously haven't done that consistently enough this year to hang their hat on it like they did a couple of years ago, but we know they're capable of doing it. But I think what's more important, and Doug kind of talked about the focusing on the good side over the bad, but to go back to the bad side a little bit, when the Kings are struggling hitting the three, when the Kings are cohesively struggling on the offensive end, what they can always control is how they play on defense. So if this is going to be a trait of this team, and it seems like it very firmly is, if the Kings are going to either live or die offensively together, on nights where they're dying, on nights where they're struggling, on nights where the shot isn't falling, because you best believe it's going to happen again. It may even start again as soon as Sunday. I hope I'm wrong, but you never know with this group. More often than not, we've seen this team be bad shooting the basketball and struggle to score the basketball. That's not true. They've been one of the best scoring teams in the league, but shooting-wise, they've been awful. On nights where that three-point shot isn't falling, the shooting isn't there, the Kings need to feed off of each other's energy on the defensive end of the floor. If they can impact each other offensively, they should also be able to impact each other defensively. If one guy is going to buy in and give his all defensively, even though he's not hitting shots on the other end, everybody better follow suit. And it seems like this team naturally, like instinctually, they go with each other. Malik Monk talked about like the brotherhood of this group. When one's on, they're all on. When one's struggling, they're all struggling, but they go through it together. And finding a way to weather those struggles together is another part of this team that they have to figure out. And what's good is that has to do with people, that has to do with personalities, and I think that falls right into the skill set of Doug Christie and his coaching style. All right, let's talk about individual performances. Speaking of Malik Monk, Malik was fantastic tonight. 31 points, which is, I think, his first 30-point performance of the season. 6 of 12 from three-point range. So he accounted for 6 of Sacramento's 21 made threes in this game. Also had 6 assists, was doing his thing, distributing the basketball, was just playmaking tonight. And a couple things. One, when Malik gets rolling, and he was rolling in this game, especially in the fourth quarter, right? There was a stretch where the Memphis Grizzlies were keeping it close, right? They were hanging around. I think they were within 6 points or something like that. And a lot of us were watching this game in the Golden One Center tonight going like, I don't know if the Kings will be able to sustain this offense, but it's realistic to imagine that the Grizzlies, even shorthanded, no John Morant, no Marcus Smart, right? It's even shorthanded, it's realistic to believe that the Grizzlies, who are one of the best 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage teams in the league, if not the best, it's realistic to think, okay, maybe they can carry it on long enough to kind of steal this game from Sacramento. And they made a big push. Kings were up 15 points with like 10 minutes or something to go in the third quarter. That game was almost tied. I think the Kings won by 2 heading into the fourth quarter. So the Grizzlies came back. The Kings responded. And Malik Monk had, in the fourth quarter, had a big step-back 3 to give the Kings a little more separation. Kings got to stop. Next time down the floor, Malik Monk attacked the basket for a layup. It was like a quick 5-0 burst from him just to give the Kings a little bit more separation, a little more breathing room, which ultimately helped them close this game out and win this game. When Malik Monk is rolling, he's not the best on the team, but he's the most fun on the team. Malik is fun. He's chaotic. Now, sometimes that chaos can be bad, but he loves to put on a show. And when he's rolling, you can't take your eyes off him because he's going to do something crazy or hit a big shot or whatever. Malik is just fun, and this was fun tonight. But what I also loved is that Malik stepped up offensively in a major way on a night where De'Aaron Fox struggled, right? Against the 76ers, Fox had one of his most efficient 30-point games of his career, right? He barely missed. He looked fantastic. Tonight, he was struggling to score. 23 points, but 7 of 23 from the field. But what I do love about this game from De'Aaron Fox is he went 8 of 9 from the free throw line, which is really, really good. Still dished out 5 assists and got 3 steals. So offensively, he was struggling, scoring the basketball, wasn't shooting efficiently, still got his teammates involved, and defensively still made the impact that we know he's capable of making on that end of the floor. And Malik Monk was quick to point out post-game, hey, De'Aaron has played the most minutes in the NBA this season. So he's going to have nights where he struggles. That's where the team has to step up and support him. And that's what this game was. This was a team victory for the Kings. 6 guys finished in double figure scoring. You know what that reminds me of? 2 seasons ago. Go back and listen to skim through podcasts from 2 seasons ago during B Team 1. The amount of times that I brought up the Kings had 6 players in double figures, 7 players in double figures, 5 players in double figures. They kept winning and scoring as a team. That came back tonight. 6 players finishing in double figures. Another one of those guys was DeMar DeRozan. 29 points. Was great to see him get back on track. 4 of 7 from three-point range. DeMar DeRozan hitting 4 threes. You best believe it. It was that kind of night. Also 5 assists and a block. There were still moments with DeMar where the ball was stopping. Right? We know he can stop the flow and the ball having energy a little bit on offense and how quick the ball is moving around. There still were moments of that, but there are also moments of him, no hesitation, shooting in rhythm, feeding off the energy of others, like getting open in the corner, catching and shooting and knocking those shots down. It was a good balance of ISO DeRozan, that is his bag, with Sacramento Kings offense DeRozan. It was a good balance tonight, and he thrived to the tune of 29 points. Had some big buckets in the fourth quarter, too. Trey Lyles continues to play fantastic off of the bench. 16 points, a perfect 6 of 6 from the field, but 4 of 4 from three-point range, 6 rebounds, a steal, and a block. He's been sensational for the Kings off of the bench. Keon Ellis, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, doing it all, especially defensively. This man is so freaking good. Second straight win for the Sacramento Kings. He's still in for the injured Keegan Murray, who's dealing with a ankle injury. Hopefully Keegan will be back soon so he can get in on some of the fun that the Kings have been having over these past couple of days. But Keon Ellis played fan-freaking-tastic. And then Domantas Sabonis, 17 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 blocks. Who says Domantas Sabonis can't protect the rim? Well, I know one game and a couple blocks doesn't change what he normally is, but he got a couple of blocks, including a block on the monster that is Zach Edey. Domantas Sabonis did a great job tonight as well. You may have noticed, though, I haven't talked about Devin Carter yet. Yes, Devin Carter made his debut for the Sacramento Kings tonight. We'll talk about his game plus what's coming up for the Kings on Sunday before we wrap this show up in the next segment. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by GameTime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy, and one of my favorite memories was or has been just attending Kings games over the years, right? Or if I'm looking to attend a concert that comes through town, a local theatrical production, the energy, the excitement, it's unforgettable. Now GameTime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, GameTime Picks. The feature filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Whether it's looking for tickets to Kings games the night of and you'll find some killer last-minute deals, or maybe you're out of town like me. I used GameTime to get some Bruno Mars tickets when I was in Las Vegas last year. Amazing deals can be found with incredible seat views, right? You're going to know exactly what your view is of the court or the field or the stage or whatever on GameTime, better than anywhere else. They have unbelievable super deals that are incredibly impressive. They offer great seats at unbeatable prices. And on top of that, the app has a all-in pricing feature that shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. So tonight we finally got the NBA debut of Devin Carter. Of course, the 13th overall pick for the Sacramento Kings last summer. Carter was before we get to his game, this game, he missed the start of this season with a shoulder injury. Had surgery on his shoulder, a injury that he's actually had before in his basketball career. He actually had similar surgery to his other shoulder when he was in high school. So this is something he's been through before, and he played 2 games with the Stockton Kings. I only went to one of them. That was the one that was here in the Golden One Center. It was his first game when I think he scored 29 points in that game. And I was sharing with people on this podcast and on ESPN 1320 with D'Lo and KC the other day, like that performance from Devin Carter was great. And he aced his first test as an NBA player playing in the G League. But that version of Devin Carter that was knocking down a boatload of threes and scoring 29 points, that wasn't the version of Devin Carter that the Sacramento Kings drafted or that they expected. What we saw tonight from Devin Carter in his NBA debut looked more like who Devin Carter is. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I watched Devin Carter play a ton of basketball at Providence. I'm not going to pretend that I was locked on Devin Carter, right? I've seen highlights. I've seen tape. I went back and watched a few games of his time in college. But this is what I believe him to be. Right? He is capable of scoring. Unfortunately, tonight, he did not score in his debut. But he had 5 rebounds, had a couple of assists, great on defense, pushing the intensity. Like, he just looked like that Tasmanian devil, and I love what Doug Christie said about him pregame. It's like there were no expectations for Devin. He was going to play, and we were just going to let him go and, like, release him. And I talked about coming into the season when we knew Devin Carter was going to be hurt. In January, maybe he can join this team and be kind of a Tasmanian devil that the Kings can just release. Hey, here's 10, 15 minutes a night. Go out and be yourself. And that's what he was in this game. His energy on the defensive end was noticeable. It was on point. His wingspan is fantastic, both on defense and very apparent during rebounding. We saw right away why he was such a effective rebounder for a point guard, and that's going to really come in handy with the Sacramento Kings team. And now we talk about, okay, offensively there still needs work, right? He went 0 of 3 in tonight's game. You would love for him to find a way to score a little bit more, but regardless, that his offensive struggles or his not really getting his shot didn't impact the way that he can help this Kings team in all the other areas, getting down and dirty, getting in the trenches, doing the little things that this team needs on a nightly basis. He showed us that. I was really happy with Devin Carter's performance tonight, and now you start looking at, okay, when you're implementing somebody else in, where do the minutes come from? It felt like, and I'm not trying to do this in like an anti-Kevin Huerter thing, some of Kevin Huerter's minutes got taken up by by Devin. Also important to note too, like there's gonna be even fewer minutes to go around because eventually Keegan Murray's gonna be back. So it feels like Kevin Huerter is the one that's going to be sacrificing minutes, and I wouldn't be surprised if steadily Carter keeps stealing more and more minutes from Kevin. Tonight, Kevin played 14 minutes, had 5 points, did dish out 4 assists. I actually thought Kevin Huerter played, for the most part, pretty well. But if he's missing shots and Devin Carter is coming in and making the impact that he made in 11 minutes of action, I think it's going to be hard to get Devin Carter off of the court. That's going to be a big deal, especially for someone like Doug Christie, who loves to reward that hustle and energy and reminds him of himself in a lot of ways, especially on the defensive end. I thought it was interesting. Kevin Huerter was the first guy to be subbed into the game off the bench in the first half. In the second half, it was Devin Carter. Not going to read too much into that, but again, I think if anybody's going to lose their minutes for Devin Carter to pick some up, it's going to be Kevin Huerter, and I think that's something worth paying attention to as this goes on. So the Kings have a day off, and then they will look to make it 4 in a row, win their first 4-game winning streak of the season if they can defeat the Golden State Warriors on Sunday. First time the Kings and Warriors are meeting this season, which is a breath of fresh air considering how much these two teams played each other last season. And remember, they played each other 4 times in the first, month and a half of last season. So it's nice that we've gotten a little bit of a break, but now they're coming back together. Of course, it's a new look Warriors team. Granted, the Kings saw the Warriors again in the play-in when they kicked their ass in this building. But that game, this upcoming game on Sunday, will be inside the Chase Center. Normally, I go to games inside of the Chase Center, but I'm not going to this time because I have some TV responsibilities to take care of here in Sacramento on Sunday. So if you're going to that game, unfortunately, I will not be there. But we will still, of course, as usual, have a post-game podcast. I'll just be doing it from the ABC 10 studios on Sunday. So hopefully you do go to the Chase Center and cheer on the Sacramento Kings while they're out there. Hopefully they can bring back a win. And look, I talked about so much to play for. I mentioned the Kings are 2 games back of the play-in. That's the 10th seed. They're also 2 games back of the 9th seed. Guess who's holding that 9th seed? The Golden State Warriors. Plenty of time for the Kings to make a push. Let's hope they can keep this thing rolling. It's been a lot of fun. Now I want to hear from you. Hit me up on Twitter at MattGeorgeSack. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Even if positive, negative, doesn't matter. Let's talk about it. Appreciate your support, as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.